my name is Gary Dickelman, and I'm facilitating the session using social media to teach advocacy to students. There are three presenters listed. Two are present today. Angela Bullock from the University of District of Columbia, my old neighborhood, and Alex Kogan from Texas Women's University, Denton, Texas. Just very briefly, it is imperative that educators strive to prepare students to use new innovations to advance social and economic justice. And what these folks are going to be speaking about is to present a strategy framework for educators to help empower students in various disciplines to learn the skills necessary to teach clients how to empower themselves. And I think in the climate today, this is probably one of the most important talks here.
Thank you. Thank you for that introduction. So welcome you all. Good morning. Thank you for being with us and joining us as we talk about how to utilize social media to teach advocacy skills to our students. So I will just say, you want to do brief introductions to provide some context?
Yeah.
Okay. So again, I'm Angela Bullock, and I am an associate professor at the University of the District of Columbia, and I also serve as a program director for the BSW, the Bachelor of Social Work program at the District of Columbia.
And I'm Alex Colvin. I am associate professor at Texas Women's University. I'm also a master's level program director for a joint MSW program in Texas.
So just to kind of go in the introduction, did very eloquently talked about our objectives, so won't spend too much time on that, on our objectives for today. But just to kind of give like a brief introduction to our topic. So this topic is probably what, 3 or 4 years in the making, probably more than that.
Yeah, a lot longer than that. Yeah.
And so what we realized in our course rooms is that a lot of our students were using social media in various ways, right? I'll just say that. And so we really wanted to see how we could harness all that energy into something that was more that could be a professional skill that could be imparted to clients. And so some things to kind of think about when you think about realizing social media is that it really does widen the civic space. We'll give some examples of what that would look like. And also thinking about our students are already using social media, right? And what I shared previously, they're already using it, so how can we harness that? And then thinking about how we can be more intentional in integrating technology in the classroom, and then also this engagement of students. How can we tap into what they're already doing and engaging them?
How many in the room are students? Students? Okay. Curious, what types of social media technology do you currently use in the classroom, in your personal life, those kind of things?
Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat.
Okay.
For me, I think it's TikTok.
TikTok. Oh,
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else that are not students that currently use some form of technology, almost in your daily lives and social lives, any other forms of technology that you use? We'll kind of talk about those more in a second.
Now, I'm a musician on the side. There's a whole collection of applications and things to help you, record something and then make sure it's in tune instead of it sounding like yourself.
Okay. So it's like an auto-tune type technology?
Yeah,
Okay.
Pro Tools and all of that,
Guys.
professional stuff. So, and without that stuff, it's interesting. During the pandemic, when we couldn't perform together, right? We lost some of those skills, but we produced some really great stuff because of the technology.
Absolutely. I think about one of the older DJs that probably Angela and I are familiar with. He was DJing and shared his music through technology during the pandemic. So he was able to use that technology to still reach a number of audiences through his music. So
You talking about DJ Nice?
DJ, yeah,
I forget his name. Okay.
Be Nice.
Be Nice, yes.
Anyone else, technology that you use regularly, in your social lives?
LinkedIn is a big one.
Mm.
Okay, LinkedIn, gotcha. And
Yeah, because I think now LinkedIn is the premier place to find jobs, apply for jobs, network. So definitely. All right. So providing a little bit more context when we talk about advocacy. So it's defined as any action that speaks in favor of, recommends, argues for a cause, supports, or defends, or pleads on behalf of others. And so e-advocacy is what this topic is mainly focused on, is all that goodness just in digital media form. And so I wanted to make sure we reiterated in the beginning that we were professors of social work, because one of the biggest pieces in our field is advocacy. So case advocacy, macro level advocacy, or cause advocacy. And so these are skills that we already have to teach our students. And how do we now in the 21st century teach these skills that were once kind of like boots to ground? Now they're in the digital media, or the social media sphere. Did you want to say?
no,
Okay, and so again, types of advocacy, won't read them through, but these are when we teach our students advocacy, these are some of the key areas that we focus on. And so I think now we live in a space where we're seeing a lot more rallies. I live in DC. There's a rally going on tomorrow. No, the 18th. What's that? That's it. So Saturday, for the Poor People's campaign. So there's all these wonderful ways in which students can engage in advocacy, and where you see individuals engaging in advocacy. And so Dr. Colvin mentioned our actuals, ways in which you are using social media. So these are some sites that you are probably very familiar with. You probably know these better than you know some other things. But I think we mentioned TikTok, Instagram, Pinterest. I don't even think anybody said Twitter, but
anybody tweeting here?
I'm more of a
Sometimes.
consumer.
Consumer.
Like my professional network.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I think you make a good point too, because sometimes we may not be active, but we're still getting the information, right,
Right.
from these tools. LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and we'll give some examples of how we're integrating these pieces. Some other sites. Has anybody heard of Clubhouse? That's one of the newer ones. Clubhouse. Okay. So Clubhouse is interesting. I want to make sure I give it the credit, give it an accurate description, but it's a site where there are various conversations going on, live conversations going on simultaneously, and you can join a particular Clubhouse and listen to the discussions. You can be asked to be moved up to the stage and be a part of the discussion. A lot of celebrities are using this as a platform to talk about various projects they're taking on. That's where I heard about it. But this is a really another great social media tool, if used for good. I have to say that part. I have to continue saying that part. Where we can have, going back to ways to advocate, where we're educating the public about particular topics.
WordPress blogs.
Yes, blogs, definitely.
Get the right people.
Mhm.
Blogs.
Any Pinterest users in here? Pinterest? Okay. My wife got me on Pinterest. I never thought I'd be using Pinterest for anything. And now I find myself using Pinterest, not really using Pinterest, but viewing Pinterest almost on a daily basis. I was like, she's always coming up with different ideas on what she wants to do to change the house. I'm like, okay, enough is enough. And now I find myself looking at different ideas on how we can enhance and change our home. So it's kind of interesting how, technology kind of grabs you sometimes. You don't really envision yourself really using it, but then when you jump on the various platforms, you find yourself immersed in it. And that's what happens for a lot of us using these different platforms. You know, just like with Twitter or Facebook or Instagram, you find yourself posting, and consuming. Okay. Sometimes it's so addicting. I'm kind of curious for those of you who are using these platforms, how frequently you use them. When you're using the platform doing your music, how frequently did you use that platform?
A lot. I mean, during the pandemic, it was an opportunity for my son, my grandson, and I to perform together. We're in different parts of the country, and so we were doing it a lot, and using Zoom and things like that. There's actually some music sharing programs where you can actually rehearse remotely, and there's no bandwidth problems.
Wow.
So you can actually play together. So for a period, for some months. It was almost every day.
Every day. Well, for those of you who are Twitter users, how often do you engage in tweeting activity with people in the Twitter sphere?
Every day.
Every day? Susan, you tweet?
Sometimes I usually use the Weibo in China.
Okay.
It's same like Twitter.
Okay.
And I use TikTok every day.
TikTok every day.
Yeah.
Do you post TikTok videos to your friends and?
No,
Okay.
but I just so immersive and it's really time consuming.
Okay.
I'm really interested in the keynote speaker this afternoon because I think there's a discussion around algorithms and kind of the content that you take in, and so I'm excited about that. But another one that I'm thinking about is Reddit. It's Reddit.
Yeah.
I'm actually creating a course right now to help develop students' interpersonal skills, and found a lot of great information to incorporate on Reddit.
Has any of you ever posted YouTube videos? Okay.
All my course lectures.
All your courses
Yeah.
on YouTube, right?
Yeah, so that goes back to that education piece, right? So then I'll leave that for the assignment. There are assignments that you can use using YouTube.
Yeah.
So you actually asked the question that we're going to use for our poll. So
Okay, well, let's still take the poll. Let's still get a poll.
So we wanted to use Mentimeter to kind of gauge how you're using social media. So if you go to menti.com and then type in the code, and also for those that are watching virtually, you can do this as well. Please, I want you to be engaged. If you're an educator or if you're a student, you can answer this. So have you used social media platforms in any of your classrooms, or have you been required to use social media in any of your classrooms? Well, I like this because you can see it in real time. All right, so we got 2, 3, 4. All right. And probably this is if you're joining this session, you have some level of interest. So yeah, there you go. All right, so we have 4 people that joined the poll and said yes. So that's great. So thinking about this, so 5 great. And we'll talk about ways that we have incorporated our ideas, but want to get in pick your brains first. How can you use social media to teach advocacy skills? If you're an instructor or if you're a student, how would you have liked to engage in social media to further your advocacy skills? So outside of posting about that wonderful vacation you had, that great dessert that you had at that your favorite restaurant, how can we use social media for advocacy? So asking you all, and if there's anybody in the virtual space.
I know on my end, even just socially, like my friends, they'll use their Instagram stories as like huge for, okay, here's this like 3-slide blurb on XYZ that's happening, whether that's, okay, like a rally's getting together, here's all the information for that, or this social event that just happened that everyone should be aware of, here are the key blurbs about it. And like I find that's the most common space, at least
Mhm.
for my social group,
Yeah.
to share all of that, and like that's like everyone's own personal interests
Mm-hmm.
and like social events and advocacy.
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely. Thank you for sharing that.
Anyone else?
So it makes me think about, if you're familiar with, is it Jill Heron?
Mhm.
When he talks about the revolution will be televised. So, it, like, we're living in that space now where the revolution, whatever that means for you, is being televised, right? In Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. Okay, so you wanna go to the next slide, or?
Yeah, do we have I'm wondering if there's anyone online that responded in any way? Just trying to make sure we capture everyone.
Okay.
Let's kind of take a look at digital advocacy. We kind of framed all of that around that discussion on digital advocacy and what digital advocacy kind of entails, because our goal here is to empower not necessarily only students, but those who are interested in creating change or movement. How can we empower them better to use technology and social media as a platform? Uh, the young person said it earlier, how we use those different platforms to kind of come together on issues that we agree on, and try to move into a direction on how we can create change through those things. So teaching digital advocacy can affect change within political, economic, social, environmental systems. We recognize that an effective advocacy increases the power of people to use institutions, to make institutions more responsive to human needs, um, to influence public policy, to influence decisions, and maybe even allocate resources. A lot of times when I think about digital advocacy, I think about the advocacy groups and how those advocacy groups come together to begin the process of eliciting change, to create those feedback loops, to increase the speed of communication. All of those things happen through the social media platforms. I'm kind of going back to, I guess, some of the things that happened previously that were influenced through social media. I don't know if anybody's familiar with Arab Spring and how that situation was influenced through social media. The Me Too movement. Anybody ever heard of Me Too movement? What is that? Black Lives Matter, right? Uh, Hashtag love wins.
The insurrection at the Capitol.
The insurrection at the
Without
Capitol.
social media, that wouldn't have come
It
together.
never would have come together. It never would have come together. So you see how those things can be influenced through social media. Anybody ever heard of a young lady? Her name is Daniella Frazier. Daniella Frazier.
Yeah.
Most of you should know who that person is. She's a 17-year-old young lady that was outside of Cup Foods in Minnesota. She whipped out her cell phone and recorded what they thought was 8 minutes and 47 seconds or 46 seconds, but it actually was 9 minutes and 20 seconds worth of footage where this police officer, Derek Chauvin, was basically killing George Floyd. Within an hour or so, she posted that on Facebook, and it started the biggest movement in United States history. Imagine that. One young lady who had the bravery to whip out her phone and use social media, Facebook, and posted that. And as a result, you had all of these various movements that emerged from that. It's like all of these people came together and they used that collective power to begin to elicit some change. And as a result, Derek Chauvin was charged, convicted, and other officers were charged and convicted. But they're going through trial now from one person's what? Video. And she used that video to what? Enhance other people's participation in a larger movement. Okay? So we see that advocacy, specifically digital advocacy, can have a major impact on how we go about creating change in society. So innovations do have those means of educating people to constantly change. So it's imperative for us, and we're educators, so we try to use whatever platforms or means that we have in order to enhance our students, especially social work educators, enhance their participation in society. So it's imperative that we use those things in order to help move our profession forward. Again, we're social workers, so that's what we do. We advocate for individuals. Keep going to the next slide. Okay. We built our discussion around, because again, we're using theory and putting theory into practice. And in this research, we built it around the experiential learning model. And that model is a John Dewey emphasized model. And the model kind of emphasizes the continuity of experiences, which entails a constant nurturing of students' curiosities through engaging in learning experience so that the student can ultimately extend beyond their own boundaries of current knowledge, okay? And there's a number of different theorists that kind of built on the experiential learning model, but Dewey was kind of the founder around that. So we're gonna kind of focus on that. In the experiential learning model, it's a multi-dimensional model. So it has like, I think 6 constructs within the model, and we're going to go through those constructs a little bit so we can kind of process those and have an understanding. If you have any questions, please let us know. So some of the 6 premises of John Dewey's experiential learning model kind of focuses on, 1, the learner, learning being best conceived as a process, not in terms of outcomes, okay? It's a process. So in other words, the learning occurs through the process of connected experiences in which knowledge is revised and improved. Knowledge is revised and improved. So we have these collective experiences where we begin to improve upon the knowledge that we have. And I kind of go back to this. When you first, how many, and again, we have students in here. How many of you actually have a hard copy textbook? Okay. How many of you also use digital textbooks? Okay. Which do you prefer? Okay, some people say hard copy. Some people might say digital because it's what? More user-friendly. I can carry it around on my phone. I don't have to walk around with a backpack.
My back prefers the electronic copy.
Right.
Yeah, but unless the software that's presenting it to you has the right artifacts in it.
Exactly.
You don't know how thick it is or whatever. I love books.
Mm-hmm.
What's the important part? It's where the binding is dirty.
Yeah, absolutely.
Everybody's opened it up there.
Absolutely. How many of you had to pivot and learn through Zoom? Okay, even with our jobs. How difficult was that for you?
Initially very.
So we're always processing and reprocessing. We're learning and relearning. That goes to another one of Dewey's premises is that the learning is always relearning. Always go back to the phone. I'm not going to age myself, but the phone has changed so many times over the last 2 or 3 decades, right? I remember when I'm not going to age myself. When we first got cell phones, we had the little, well, it was really a box phone. It was a large phone in the 80s. And it really took up a lot of data. So you couldn't use it very long because getting time on your phone was very expensive. Then it went to a smaller version where you had a little flip out thing, you press the buttons, you can only call, right? Then we moved to this, what was it, a slide phone. Everybody remember the slide phone that slid down? And then at that point, you had the capability of sending messages. You remember that? I don't know, some of us do.
You could send messages on the flip phone, it's just you had to.
Yeah, it was it was a lot. Okay. Then Apple came up with something called the You remember what was it, the iPod? You were able to what? Walk around. You had to walk around. Remember the Walkman? Had the big cassette tapes. You had to put them in there. You ran out of batteries. Apple said, I'm going to give you this little Walkman that you can use, and you'll have a catalog of songs. And you can download that music there. Remember that? See how technology evolves, so we're learning is always relearning. We're relearning different things. We're integrating those things into our being. Then we moved to the iPhone. I remember the first iPhone that I got. It's like, wow, man, you can actually do text messages. I remember beepers.
Yeah.
Anybody remember beepers? Yeah. And you had someone would call you, and you had your beeper. You go to a payphone, and yeah, they put different codes in
You're
there.
dating yourself.
Yeah, I know I am, so I'm okay with that. And then we moved from the thing where I don't know if you remember the Nextel phone. You remember Nextel? Some people do. Where you had the direct connect, where you can connect with people, and it's like a walkie-talkie. We moved to where actually chirping. Yeah, exactly. And then we moved to the iPhone, where now we can do text messages, email, phone call. We can also what? Check the internet. So we're walking around with a mini computer at our hands. And it continually enhances. So we're always learning and what? Relearning. Okay? That's something that we do regularly. Learning also, the third premise, learning requires a resolution of conflict between dialectically opposing modes of adaptation to the world. Okay? Specifically, conflict and disagreement drives the learning process. You agree or disagree with that? Conflict and disagreement drives the learning process.
Crisis is opportunity.
It does.
Yeah. And I just want to add too,
Sure.
with that premise is that one has to be open to that conflict and hearing the other side. So that's where the learning really does happen when you're open to hearing other perspectives.
I know many times as employees, we're tasked with change, right? I can remember we were doing some online teaching, and we had to pivot from one platform to another platform. We're using a platform called Adobe Connect. Anybody ever heard of Adobe Connect? And Adobe Connect was just I thought it was innovative. Oh man, we're all on the screen together in this Brady Bunch type format. We call into a dial-in number, and everybody can hear one another. You can also use the microphone on the computer, but sometimes it was, kind of hard to hear. Then we transitioned to Zoom as a platform. And a lot of people couldn't wrap their brains around it. They were like, why are we changing this? This is great. But it did cause conflict because some people said, I'm not doing that. And as a result, they decided to what? Leave. You find employees within workforces that what? Can't adapt to change. It creates an issue for them. So there's a conflict between what? Management and the employee. And the employee decides, hey, I can't do this anymore. Maybe I'm too old. I'm that dinosaur. I'm leaving the workforce. But it also creates opportunities for those new learners. Saying, oh yeah, I like that. It's different, it's new, it's much more user-friendly. I can do that. So we're always in that process of battling conflict of two different types of modes of learning. But if we adapt to the new concept, many times it can enhance what we do. And that's the one thing that we're trying to get our students to understand. That sometimes it may not be what you want, but sometimes change is what? Good. But always bad. Dr. Bullock, you want to share anything on that? The fourth premise, learning is a holistic adaptive process to the world. In particularly, we're talking about, again, we're changing as we're seeing the world change, right? We're not staying stagnant. Just imagine if I was still using that flip phone or that big box phone back in the 80s. It likely won't be working right now. But me trying to use it, I'm not incongruent with what's going on with the times. So we have to forever be adopting or adapting to what is occurring through the world. Keep moving forward. Oh, no, that's a couple more. The fifth premise is learning results from a synergistic transaction between the person and environment. A synergistic transaction between the person and environment. What we receive from the environment and what we give back to the environment. What we receive from the environment and what we give back to the environment. We should not ever be in this mode where we're always taking, but what can we give back in some way? Okay. Is there any way that we can make a contribution? Okay. And that's basically what Dewey is talking about. And then the sixth premise is that learning is a process of creating knowledge. Learning is a process of creating knowledge, whereby knowledge is created through a transformation of experiences. I'm using my experiences to enhance your experience, to enhance your experiences. Okay. And we teach our students that because we don't operate within a vacuum, but we operate within a big societal system. So what I have can impact or better impact you and vice versa. Okay. We do recognize, however, go to the next slide, Dr. Wood. Through these premises, technology has opportunities, but it also presents challenges. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the challenges that we recognize. We're trying to enhance the use of social media as a advocacy tool. Some of the challenges that can be created is that these opportunities helping students to understand the importance of professional boundaries, especially in our profession, because we're governed or bound by what we call a code of ethics. And sometimes students really don't understand ethical boundaries or guidelines and how to follow those things. You can't post everything just because you dislike something. Okay. I'm, curious and I'm headstrong about a particular cause. And I dislike a person because their views are different than mine. So if I see something that I don't like, I'm going to go and I'm going to put that out there. Okay. I'm going to put that person on blast. We're good about that. Okay. I'm going to counter that by putting that person on blast. But it's not the most appropriate thing to do. Okay. Do I have the right information as I'm trying to engage in that practice? Is that within certain boundaries, especially if I'm working within a particular system? Is that actually a professional thing to do? So we have to teach our students to operate or understand those important boundaries associated with the use of social media and technology as an advocacy tool. Go to the next. Go ahead.
I wanted to say a bit more about the boundaries piece is ultimately when we're teaching our students how to build their advocacy skills through social media, we want them to then transfer that knowledge to their clients, right? And how they're using social media for good and get the messaging out there. And so there may be some blurred lines if you are talking about social media as a social worker and to your client and is it okay for my client to follow me on Instagram? And if they're following me, what messaging am I putting out there? Am I still presenting myself as a professional if clients are following me? And so that's the other side of the boundaries is really talking through the ethics around how do you utilize social media and when you're trying to teach these skills to clients.
Isn't it the difference between advocacy and weaponizing the?
You got it.
Yeah, definitely.
You got it.
And so we're actually going to do an activity, have further dialogue around it. And so some of these things will probably come up.
Mm-hmm.
You said you wanted to go to the
No. Keep going. I want to go to the next point. Using digital tools like social media in the classroom. For the students, how many of you actually are encouraged to use your social media platforms as a part of your courses or instruction? Talk about that a bit. In what ways are you using your social media as a part of classroom instruction?
I'm a graphic design major, and so being creative is very important to put my artwork out there to the public through social media. It was the easiest way to reach a lot of people in a short amount of time. So when doing like a lot of projects, we're encouraged to create, collaborate with other students and create an entire social media page and gaining followers through that and putting my artwork out there and so forth.
You give your artwork out, and that helps to build maybe your future clientele, get people to notice the work that you're doing, and that reaches a larger audience where previously, if you were just holding that and trying to share it within, the university community, you may not get much traction. So that's a perfect example. Thank you. Anyone else?
So in the corporate world, the equivalent of Facebook is like Yammer, there was for a while. And in a software company where you have customers out there that need to know, if you get your organization on Yammer, they can solve problems rather than a formal knowledge base. You've got a wealth of information there, and you can use that in your stand-up training, in your virtual training, all of that.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Thank you. And I'm glad you came to it from a corporate perspective and how it's being used in that arena as well. Anyone else? Have you been encouraged in your courses or in your profession to integrate social media as a part of your practice? And if so, what ways are you doing that?
I've taken like education and organizing classes that incorporate social media post design, like social media proposals for an organization or something like that into the classroom as an assignment. People even use like LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and almost all the classes I have that encourage collaboration. They will have like teachers would encourage people to have social media chat groups like on WhatsApp or Discord. Those are the main ways.
Good. That's great to hear that, the professors or the teachers are encouraging students to get together using these platforms. And that's a part of the networking process, right? But you still will find that a number of students really do not have a good command of technology in the classroom. It's unfortunate. You would think, especially if we're dealing with, with the Generation Z now, that they would know because they're gaming, they're using electronic technologies all the time. I can't walk into my house and not hear my son playing, he's a 21-year-old young man, not hear his game going. And many times I can hear him upstairs because he'll yelling with the guys that he's playing with or, ladies he's playing with online. I'm like, okay. But I wonder how much, and he knows how to Zoom, he knows how to do a lot of chats and so forth. But I'm wondering how many of his peers also know how to use these platforms in a productive way, okay? In a productive way. So anyone else is using your technology, how are you using your technology?
And I just want
No. I started a number of years ago using Slack as
Mm.
a communication platform for students, and it was on Students Initiative. Our institution uses Blackboard, which is really antiquated system.
Yeah.
And then I feel like it's one way we've been really great, or have students be able to make connections to one another. That's a little bit more private sort of network, but our also makes extensive use of Facebook group and LinkedIn groups to disseminate, job opportunities to students, upcoming talks, or trying to get some two-way interaction.
Thank you.
Well, I worked at Arizona State University Libraries. The whole university used Slack. And it was, I was not a fan of it. But it was so helpful. It's just those times when you can't get your phone, you're in front, and typically you just have Slack open. But just an instant message to someone to say, hey, are you running late? You're in the meeting. I'm not making a phone call, I'm not doing the email. They already have Slack open. So, oh my God, I forgot about that. And I just found it so annoying, but it was really helpful to, actually do that. We did, committees, because we have multiple, they have multiple campuses. And if you're on different campuses doing committee work, it was just a lot easier than sending that whole long, email. I hated Slack, but it was really beneficial.
So you had to have a resolution of conflict with the technology. That's that third premise in Dewey's model. You were resolving that conflict that you had with.
Conflict, and it was like, everyone was like, you really gotta get on Slack. And when I was like the first month, I really knew it. Because I felt like, but I was moving from campus to campus, but I was also interacting with people on the opposite campus I was on, and that was the best way to communicate.
Yeah.
And I thank you for sharing that too, because that really speaks to the challenge of integrating these technologies, is because where you were open to it, you didn't want to, but you were still right. But you have some individuals, some instructors, some individuals that will not, they may see the benefit, but it's like, no, I've had a negative experience, or I know what it can do in my personal life. So they're, completely just, I'm not gonna do it. Yeah. Well,
Okay.
but yeah, whatever the resistance is, it exists, right? And so we're talking from a space of, oh, all things are grand and beautiful using social media, but there are a lot of people that are like, no, like this is, I'm still having conversations with colleagues around this, and they're like, there's no way I would do this in the classroom. There's no way. It just opens up a Pandora box.
Mm-hmm.
And so that really does become the challenge.
But I would say during the pandemic, we always used Zoom. I've used it in previous places that I've worked, so it was not an issue with Zoom. But Slack was a lifesaver because we created communities.
Yes.
Those multiple campuses. And so each group had a theme. Those people who like them cats, they had a cat group.
I love it.
Those people who were parents, I say that like about the parents. Those people who had parents or really small kids. Mm-hmm. And literally, we had to accept the fact that one coworker, her son, only if she was in the meeting, would like to stand behind her and jump up. And I loved her. That's all we could do. Yeah. And she would just, and I would just text her, just focus on the topic. Mm-hmm. And we're going to enjoy your son. Yeah. So we ended up sending her, because she actually was very upset, but during COVID or, anytime you can be in South Florida or some of the other places where you can't go to work. These community groups were our lifelines, because a lot of us in Arizona really did not leave our homes during COVID. Then there was the other groups, they didn't stop doing what they were doing. But for those who were at home, the community groups were, they even had one on vacation.
That was just making me
and that was all through Slack. So we all ended up having to move to Slack for sure.
And you mentioned something too around, of course, COVID, we had to pivot. So people who were the naysayers, no technology in the classroom, in the workspace. Okay, if you don't use technology, then you won't be able to connect. But I'm starting to see a shift now where, because things are opening up, like it's a revolt against technology. So that's that challenge too. Like, it was great for 2020 and 2021, but I don't want to, no more Zoom, no more Slack. I don't want it, right? So that's what we're faced with as well.
Yeah, just look at what Elon Musk just said. Anybody just saw him. Elon Musk basically told his employees, you're coming back to work. If you don't, find another job. The comfort of the technology helped people to be able to still be productive during that time where we were down. Now it's saying, okay, we're gonna put this technology down and we're gonna have a face-to-face engagement once again. So it's kind of interesting that Dr. Bullock said that. Yes.
Some of the resistance for teachers of bringing social media into the classroom is just because we come from a place of no phones in the classroom,
yes,
no computers, right? You're gonna take everything, and then now there's a shift. So from a lot of old school kids, like, how am I supposed to allow something that I've been saying no my entire life? Now I have to incorporate into my curriculum, right, and make part of it. So I think it's happening, but there's a lot of resistance from that, right?
Yeah.
Because again, it's the attention span. What are you doing on your phone? What are you doing on your computer, right? Because again, that misuse of it, right? And so that becomes that how do we navigate that, right?
Yeah.
We incorporate that, but at the same time, and if you do the advocacy part, like, you might be doing something good, right? Don't assume that, because for at least you and your phone, you're gonna take it and you're probably doing something bad, and you might not, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's the part that we need to kind of navigate for, not just for the teachers, right? But how do you do that in a positive way in the acceptance? It's part of it, it's here, it's not going anywhere, and you have to like incorporate, accept slack, right? Those are ways that there's growth there, right? So sometimes that growth takes some time.
And that, go ahead, Dr.
I
Booth.
was going to say, so I primarily teach face-to-face, teach online as well, but primarily face-to-face. So prior to pandemic, a lot of the things that I did in the classroom, I integrated technology. Like I wasn't using Mentimeter at the time, but I was using like Nearpod, all other kinds of tools. And I would tell my students at the beginning of the semester, I've given up the good fight with technology, fighting against students with putting their phones up. So I'm going to embrace it. You're going to be, I'm not going to pull up my slides on the front of the screen. You can open up your phone, your laptop. I consider myself to be kind of funny. But if you're giggling, I know you're not giggling at, you're probably on Facebook. So just stay engaged. But yeah, I think we have to, like you said, it's here, it's not going anywhere. When you think about K through 12, they're learning through technology in a lot of ways, whether it's in the classroom or outside. And so we have to be able to harness that, like figure out how to use it for the purposes of learning.
Yeah, they've grown up, this new generation has grown up with technology in hand. You know, I can still remember my cousin's daughter, even my children, you know, having cell phones and having iPads when they were, what, 2, 3 years old. And they were basically learning using technology from out of the womb.
I mean,
You
my
know,
son.
her son, we were talking about that last night. Technology right in hand. And LJ's not even 2 years old.
And that's, you gotta look at the,
You know how to do it.
Oh, yes, that's, yes.
Right. You know, but I was one that, you know, I was one of those old school professors that I did not want technology in my classroom. I didn't want you to have your computer. I was one of those professors that learned from my professor that said, you're going to articulate your risk. I mean, you're going to write as I talk. But I had to pivot, you know, and especially when we started doing our research around technology and how now this can become a tool to be used in the classroom. So I started integrating more of the technology in my lectures. A lot of times they'll have their technology out. We'll do polling through, you know, Nearpod or now Mentimeter. So we integrate a lot of those things in there. And then we said, okay, how can we take this further? Because you as a practitioner are going to be creating change in society. So how can we use this to create change in society? But we also wanted to advise our students along with using technology to elicit change. Technology can also has a disadvantage because you have to also navigate the misinformation and disinformation that's out in society. Because just like you're coming across groups that you may agree with, you may tag onto those groups and create a movement, there's also misinformation or disinformation being posted as well. So we have to be careful about that. And we have to instruct our students to be careful about that as well. One thing I want to throw out this statistic. Misinformation is 70% more likely to be retweeted on Twitter than the truth. 70% more likely to be retweeted on Twitter than the truth. Imagine that. Just think about the number of students who just use Twitter for all of their information. Remember I talked about earlier how you can take that information that you just came across and you said, wow. And I'm taking that disinformation and misinformation, I'm sharing that further. So I'm really creating a new environment where I'm, you know, kind of destroying a lot of things. So we encourage our students to do your own research. Okay, don't just take what you see at face value. Go through the process of researching things yourself to become more knowledgeable about it before you just share stuff. I always kind of go back, I think someone mentioned the insurrection earlier. I don't know who it was that mentioned insurrection earlier. Think about the number of people who converged on the Capitol through a disinformation campaign. Stolen election. We're going to Washington to take the country back. And as a result, we ended up in an insurrection. And through that disinformation and misinformation, a number of people still believe what? We had a stolen election.
Yeah. Don't worry about aging yourself. I got decades, but I implemented some of the early email systems, and one of the things we had to teach people is the same thing when you're driving in the car and you curse at somebody.
You got it.
They don't hear you, you know, and you would never talk to somebody like that in public. And you have to set those ethical standards and so forth.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You're writing an email more than 3 lines.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely.
Definitely, yeah, so again, I talked about the class I'm developing. One of the pieces is how to write an email, right? How to write a professional email. These are things we have to teach, right? So, we only have 2 minutes, so I'm gonna buzz through. My apologies, but I just wanted to give some actual assignments that so our other colleague is not here, Dr. Sabrina Jackson, but across 3 of us and some more research that we've done, these are some really great assignments that we've been able to incorporate in the classroom. And so one is connecting with peers and professionals using Twitter. I think somebody mentioned LinkedIn is another great tool as well. But there is a macro social work on Twitter. Every Thursday, there's discussions around particular policy issues that impact clients. And one of the assignments that advocacy assignment is where we ask our students to join that Twitter conversation and ask questions and talk about the content. And then we come back at the following week and talk about those experiences. So great networking, way to engage, hearing from people all over the world around particular issues. Infographics to promote advocacy on Instagram. So you mentioned being digital media. Is it digital media?
It's
Graphic design, sorry, yes.
Right.
So that's probably the example you gave really speaks to that. So pictures, videos, now on Instagram, the big thing is reels. Anything under a minute, you gotta catch people's attention. So putting quick information out there around advocacy issues or policy issues. And I mentioned too that so I live in Washington, D.C., but I found out about the march that's occurring on the 18th through social media. I'm part of a sorority, and they put on their Instagram page, join us at the Capitol on the 18th. So I was like, okay, that's where I'm getting my information, right? And I live right there. Engaging in YouTube. So putting one thing that we ask students to do around a particular topic is to post a quick video about that topic, share it on their YouTube page, ask the students to actually comment, because those comments, I don't know if you've been in the comment section, it goes down in the comments.
But be mindful of, and this is our responsibility, if we see those things that are changing the direction of, the discussion, we need to call those things out, not in a negative way, but we need to say, this is not the direction that we're trying to take this movement or this conversation. We want to redirect it back to the appropriate conversation.
Yeah, and so that's exactly why we do that in that particular assignment is to help them frame how to have those discussions in the comments. And then social media and technology use and policy assignment. So this particular assignment, I teach a macro level course, and it's actually a senior level course where all the things that they've learned throughout their 2 years in our program, they're supposed to be they demonstrate all of that goodness in this particular course. And they're charged with creating some kind of advocacy project. There have been many things that I've seen across the years, but one of the key pieces of the advocacy project, they had to do an educational campaign through at least one social media platform about what their project is and inviting people to take part in it. So that's the quick and dirty version of how to incorporate those assignments in the classroom.
It's not only for our students as social workers, but we're looking at how any individual, whether you're a student or professional, and you have this desire to engage in some kind of advocacy effort, how you can do it in the most appropriate and effective way. And not, again, engage in the process where you're hurting the cause, but you're helping the cause, okay? Let's go to the case study really quickly, and then we'll wrap our presentation up. I want us to process this case study really quickly. And I live in Texas, and I had a student of mine who actually came to me, and she was doing her internship in an agency, a nonprofit agency, with the refugee population. And in Texas, of course, it's a very conservative state. The governor, of course, is trying to do things in order to get the people behind him so he can get reelected. So one of the things that he decided to do was to cut funding to agencies that work with immigrant populations. Of course, in Texas, they talk about border security and all these other things like this. This is big, invasion of people coming into the country and trying to take whatever. I don't know what the hell they're trying to take, but they're trying to take something. But anyway, his goal was to try to cut funding to agencies who were helping immigrant or refugee population. And the student came to me and she said that she was tasked by her director to help clients, help empower clients to speak out about this cause and how, cutting funding was going to eventually hurt them. I said, that's a great opportunity for you to use your knowledge in social media and technology to elicit change. And that's what we were deciding to, I said, I encourage you to do that and take that back to the director, what you can do using technology to do it, how you can empower your clients to do it. So I wanted to present this case study to you. We want to present this case study to you. I wanted to pick your brains on ways that you can use the skills that you have to create an advocacy platform using social media for a group like that. So what would you do to use the skills that you have and these platforms to create an advocacy campaign for this group of refugees and immigrants? I'm kind of curious to hear about the young lady who's in, is it digital media?
No,
graphic design, because that's a specific type of skill. What would you use with graphic design in order to build a campaign for an immigrant or refugee population that they can reach out to legislators or the governor themselves to try to bring a cause together?
Yeah, so for one of my classes, we had to do 10 conceptual posters and work with a nonprofit and donate that artwork to them to raise awareness to their cause. And so one of the things that I would do is like create conceptual art in that sense, and also doing Instagram carousels that are kind of like those infographics where you have like big text and like the percentage and everything in the face of the user to catch their attention, and then build on that.
I love it. I love it. Beautiful example. Anyone else? Anyone else? I know we're kind of short on time.
I'll be quick. Working in marketing for a very long time, we typically pull photo and quote, get some people who have been directly impacted, get a slogan going, take some photos, we do videos, all those types of things, some sort of promotional video to get going. We use those Instagram stories a lot since that's where the viewers are. And we constantly posted those stories, hit them with the live videos. Hey, we are right here on scene, that kind of stuff. That's how I would use to get a hashtag going. And
I love it. I love it. Even utilizing Slack. Have a community via Slack, that platform. How you can communicate among each other. Just like Dr. Bullock was saying, we're going to mobilize this population and move and maybe march on the Capitol and create change. But you have a group of people that can actually come together and create that dialogue. Again, I think we're out of time, so we're gonna stop right here. Thank you for coming. We appreciate you coming to our session.